In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
Good morning. We have just gone through an incredible story in chapter 16 of Acts. Paul and Silas, they cast a demon out of a woman who was fortune telling, and folks were making profit out of knowing what was coming in the future. And so once the demon was cast out, she couldn't predict the future anymore, and people got mad. They arrested Paul and Silas, dragged them before the magistrates, and got thrown into prison, into inner prison, and put in stock. And so in this horrible situation, Paul and Silas are singing praise to God. And the other prisoners are listening to these guys. Well, an earthquake comes, opens the doors to the prison, knocks the bonds off their feet. They could leave if they wanted to, but they stayed. And so did the other prisoners. Well, when the prison guard saw that they were still there, he said, I want character like you guys have. Tell me what I have to do to be saved. Well, Paul and Silas told the gospel, and this guy not only heard the gospel himself, but his whole family heard it. They all believed. They all were baptized. Well, when the magistrates decided they didn't have anything to hold Paul and Silas on, they said, release them. And Paul and Silas said, no, we're not going that easy. You guys were wrong towards us, and we expose corruption. We expose unfairness. And so he made the magistrates come, and the magistrates begged them to leave town. Well, they hung out with Lydia for a little while, and then they did leave town. And that's where we pick up the story now as we start chapter 17 in Acts. And we see that they left town, and now, when they had traveled through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica, where there was a synagogue of the Jews. And according to Paul's custom, he went to them, and for 3 Sabbaths, that's probably 3 weeks worth, he reasoned with them from the scriptures. And that's what I want you to see today. In particular, keep in mind, these guys didn't have the New Testament. All they had was the Old Testament writings. And so the law and the prophets is what Paul was using to explain that Jesus was the Christ. We see that in verse 3, explaining and giving evidence that the Christ had to suffer and rise again from the dead, and saying, this Jesus whom I am proclaiming to you is in fact the Christ. Well, some of them were persuaded and joined Paul and Silas, along with a large number of God-fearing Greeks and a number of the leading women. Oh, when the truth is spoken, what's the truth? Well, Jesus was foretold. Jesus was prophesied. And when Jesus himself walked on the earth, he fulfilled all those prophecies. And so you can look at the old scriptures and see how Jesus fulfilled the prophecies, and you know he is sent by God, the Christ, the one to pay an atonement for all our sin, that we could be saved and united with God for all eternity. God bless you who has said yes to the gospel, just like many of these Jews, many of the Greeks, many of the women. Oh, when you hear the truth, you say yes to Jesus and receive God's love. You're a new creature. You won't ever be the same. I look forward to being with you tomorrow. We're going to see what happens when people start believing in Thessalonica. I'll see you tomorrow.
Give me Jesus, give me Jesus. You can have all this world, but give me Jesus.